Hey everyone, we are the Gratitude Girls.
The gratitude girls are in the house. Hi, Laurie. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Kathryn?
I am fantastic. I'm going to announce myself so we can get into our amazing show and start to talk to our guest. If you're tuning in for the very first time tonight, welcome. And if you are one of our beautiful fans, we're so grateful that you're here. My name is Kathryn Asaro Myers, affectionately known as RaRa, and I'm broadcasting to you live tonight from beautiful Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I'm here with my amazing Gratitude Girls partner.
And I am Laurie Delk Radecki, and I'm outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
Tonight, we are having a conversation with not only a doctor who's in the house, a good friend. And we're going to talk about things that you may not have thought of having a conversation on. So, first, I'd like to say that we're going to hear a fantastic story. But before we hear a story, we're going to get to know a little bit more about Dr. Effy. So I'm going to do an introduction, and I'd like to read a little bit about Dr. Effy first. And then I'm going to say from my heart how I feel about her. Dr. Effy is a dedicated naturopathic doctor and registered acupuncturist. She works with men and women achieving lasting wellness by addressing the foundations of health. Dr. Effy has a 5-pillar health approach. Those 5 pillars are nutrition, gut health, hormonal balance, lifestyle, movement and rest, and brain emotional health. Brain and emotional health. Dr. Effy provides personalized care that supports the body and the mind from the inside out. With over a decade of clinical experience, Dr. Effy Germanis combines the science of naturopathic medicine with the wisdom of acupuncture to assist her patients to optimize their health, restore balance, and prevent future health challenges. Dr. Effy's approach is rooted in understanding each person as a whole, empowering them with the knowledge and the strategies to take charge of their own well-being. Dr. Effy has completed her honors Bachelor of Science in Human Biology and Biomedical Ethics at the University of Toronto in 2008, followed by a Doctor in Naturopathic Medicine degree at Bastyr University in 2012. She further enhanced her expertise with the 2-year acupuncture diploma at the Toronto School of Traditional Medicine in 2016. Dr. Effy was pretty busy. She is licensed to practice in Ontario and registered with the College of Naturopathics of Ontario and the College of Traditional Chinese Medicine, say that 3 times fast, and Acupuncturists of Ontario. Dr. Effy is also an active member of the Ontario and Canadian Associations of Naturopathic Doctors. It sounds like she has really put her mind to this. Her mission is to guide patients towards optimal health and vitality by addressing root causes leading back to her 5 pillars, supporting lifestyle changes and creating a sustainable path to wellness that comes from within. This is something we all strive to have. In addition to the clinical practice, Dr. Effy has served as an educator of acupuncture and basic science at the Toronto School of Traditional Chinese Medicine for the past 8 years. Through her teaching, she mentors and inspires future practitioners to bridge science and tradition in the pursuit of integrative patient-centered care. Now, if you think that's a lot, that's nothing. I haven't gotten started yet. Dr. Effy is someone who says what she means what she says, does what she says, and follows through. In my personal experience with Dr. Effy, I must say, the joy of having a conversation is not just a back and forth dialogue, it's the depth and the desire that Dr. Effy has to listen and communicate. If you think about climbing a wall, what it takes, because we actually are going to be doing that, what it takes depth, commitment, and perseverance. I've never seen Dr. Effy do anything other than go forward and upward and onward in the time that I know her. And I'm a pretty strategic observer. I am so impressed with the dedication that you have towards your practice, Dr. Effy. Welcome to the Gratitude Girls.
Thank you so much, both Laurie and Kathryn, or RaRa. I can go with RaRa as well, for that introduction. Like, just always brings like just a nice warm feeling that it's just appreciated, and yeah, that you've said such beautiful words. So thank you.
Well, you are that, and that's what you are to me and to us. Now, may I call you Effy for this moment, for this
Yeah.
one brief moment, and then I will refer to you as Dr. Effy because this is for your audience. So, Effy, heart to heart, friend to friend, did you ever think about being on a podcast and talking to an audience where you haven't done an intake and had a conversation with the person first? You're speaking to a camera right now. Have you thought about that in all those years of education that you went to learn to be a doctor?
Not at all. When we were in school, it was just like, you're going to finish, you're going to go practice, you're going to talk to people. There was no online, let's think about the online world. Let's think about podcasts and Instagram and social media, none of that. So it's kind of surreal to be like, oh, I'm actually on a podcast. And I thought about that probably post pandemic a little bit, like, oh, got to get online. It'd be really cool to do a podcast. And I'm so happy to be here because it's pretty much my first podcast that I'm on.
Congratulations. We are so happy that you're here with us because you get what you think about, right? So, in health, just like you talk about in your 5 pillars, what you focus on is what happens. If you focus on it being more or less, that's what you get. So, in your experience, can you share with us an opening statement about how your 5 pillars, once we learn about them, and maybe we won't have a chance to have a class tonight, but we'll have a conversation. How do your 5 pillars really affect me as I know you, but let's say I'm a brand new listener tonight. And I'm like, okay, great. Dr. Effy has 5 pillars. What is that going to do for me? How will that affect my life?
Well, really simply, when we're thinking of the 5 pillars, right, it's those 5 foundational pieces. Now, the pillars can vary from person to person, but truly they're the main 5 that we're looking at. And as you noted them, we're looking at nutrition, how we fuel our body, how we fuel our energy and our cells at the cellular level, and we give it the nourishment it needs. And then we look at how we are assimilating or getting our nutrients from the food and drink that we're consuming. And so these are 2 key pieces that we think about in terms of nourishing our body, bringing nourishment in from the environment that's going to feed us, that we're using as our fuel. From there, right, the other foundations can sometimes vary, but the ones that I felt placed a big role were, as you said, hormonal balance, which is not just sex hormones, but looking at things like insulin, looking at your thyroid, your cortisol, those stress hormones, where we see they create either optimal health or they wreak havoc if they're out of dysfunction or out of optimal ranges. And then one of the biggest things that we have the major control on is lifestyle. How we move our body or don't move our body, how we give it rest and time to rebuild and recharge. And then looking at, and this is something I teach a lot about, we're teaching pain management now in acupuncture classes. And it's all about pain as a physical aspect, but pain also talks about the spiritual and emotional. So looking at that emotional, spiritual level that is really pertinent in health. We can't get away from life without feeling some emotion, and we shouldn't suppress them, but we should also be able to understand them and deal with them appropriately.
Okay, so for the person who's coming in and watching this show for the first time, and they're saying,
Mhm.
okay, I'm not sure where I'm going with that. So if somebody's watching for the first time, they're going to hear emotion, that maybe they're going to hear mental health. They're going to hear their connection to their body. So if somebody's coming in contact with the doctor, with you, Dr. Effy, for the first
Mhm.
time, what's the impact that you're going to have on their life? Maybe they're not aware of these things yet.
Yeah, for many, we experience certain symptoms. We're experiencing a certain sensation. That could be something physical, that could be something mental, emotional, that could be something completely different. So a lot of times, the way I love to work with clients and patients is to really hone in. One of my main things is knowing what are your goals, like what are your health goals right now, and what are some of the obstacles that you're experiencing, because we all know how to take care of our body. Sometimes we get lost in the jumble of life. We get distracted by taking care of family and friends and other individuals before we take care of ourselves. So a lot of times, even if it's things, there's going to be some key words that are going to come out during the discussion tonight, and we may have even touched upon them when we say things like nutrition and gut health and mental emotional health, or
Mm-hmm.
rest. And so
Right.
those are the ones that pop up because we realize, hey, that is not working really well for me right now. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's just that we're just not doing the right steps. Maybe there's things that we're missing
Mm-hmm.
that we're not realizing, or there's certain things that we just need a little bit more accountability and support. And that's where I come in.
Okay, so let's say somebody is really into themselves and they start to notice something's not right and they don't
Mhm.
know all the steps to put together. You're saying that when the first red flag comes up, gut health, fatigue, when that red flag comes up, that's a time to pay attention without understanding what it is. Just like, oh, I notice I'm tired lately, or I notice that my tummy isn't really right, or I'm not sleeping. The first sign is not too soon to inquire. Is that what I hear?
Correct. The first sign, usually, like as you said, fatigue, exhaustion, feeling tired, needing coffee to wake us up, not having energy to get things done, not feeling motivated, even these small little things that we kind of push aside, that's the body saying, hey, I need your help. And so when we notice that, and we usually wait a bit, we're like, oh, I just had a rough week, or work has been stressful, or, mom and dad are not doing well. So this is how I'm supposed to feel. No, you should feel good no matter what. So when we start to notice those symptoms coming up, or when we just don't feel good and we don't have to have a reason, we can't even pinpoint the reason, that's when it's time to chat with somebody, or at least start to hone in and see, okay, what is it that I'm actually experiencing?
So you're probably speaking at least to 50% of the universe right now. Minimum, anybody who's listening tonight would say, okay, we need coffee to wake up. I'm tired, or we've convinced ourselves that this is the ritual or the routine, or I need a cup of tea or whatever I need. I need caffeine in some form. Who knows? Some people can get caffeine in many different ways. So what I understand is paying attention is what we can bring you the observations that we have without
Mhm.
becoming, let's say, using Dr. Google, coming to you
Oh,
and
yes.
saying, this is what's happening. Maybe I wrote it down. Maybe I wrote it in my gratitude girls journal. Who knows? But I wrote down what it is that I'm observing. And if I come to you with the list of observations, is that a good place to start?
100%.
Okay, good.
We've really come accustomed to saying this is normal. And I think the word normal needs to be changed because a
Mm,
lot of symptoms we experience aren't normal. And we assume because, oh, everyone deals with this, but it's usually a
right,
sign. So anything you feel, you write it down in your gratitude journal, a gratitude girls journal, you write it down on a piece of paper, you write it down
right.
as a mental note. That's what you come in with. That's what we work on. And you'll start to see it unravel where all of a sudden, oh, but
Hmm.
this also happens. And then this happens. And then we see, okay, we're seeing where that root
Right.
cause is coming from.
Right. So Laura, you know how I hear what Dr. Effy is saying, that before we have some kind of crash and headache, we can write our symptoms down like we are having a girlfriend chat with our book. And we can say, gee, maybe this is a good idea to ask my naturopathic doctor about. Meaning, instead of coming to you with a migraine where I can't see and doubled over because my stomach hurts and exhausted because I don't know how I'm going to drive there, I haven't slept, get to you before this becomes catastrophic so you could actually speak to somebody who's able to listen to you and not be in a 911 state. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, 100%. And when it comes to naturopathic medicine and holistic medicine, that's exactly what we want. We want to prevent. That's preventative medicine. And a lot of times we don't notice when things kind of go off because, it can happen as a cascade or a domino effect. But the sooner you come in, the
Mhm.
easier one is to kind of hopefully come back to balance, but also help you feel better sooner rather than let it linger and then let it layer and let it get more complicated and complex and
Mm.
more harder or more difficult to deal with or get back to where you were before.
Well, our cars have lights that tell us get our oil changed, check the air tire. Is there something that we could hear from you? For example, should we every January check in with a naturopathic doctor before the year and say, let's look at the year ahead and make a plan? Should we check in quarterly? Is there some rule of thumb that you would like to create or share tonight so that we don't just wait until we're feeling so bad that we can't even pay attention?
I feel like, it's kind of almost like saying, oh, I'm going to start on Monday. So I think the moment you're saying, hey, I want some support, or hey, I have this goal for this year, or I want to accomplish this. Like, for example, when I was doing the CN Tower climb, I trained for it. I started going to the gym and started walking on that nice Stairmaster every day and trying to increase the time on that. And, the first days I was on it for 2 minutes, the next day is 4 minutes, and it was increasing. So it's the same thing, whether we have symptoms, which most of the time is when we start to think about our health. But even prior to that, we have goals that we want to do. We want to travel somewhere. We want to be present for
Mm.
a family member's wedding or a daughter's wedding, whatever it is, or we want to lose weight by summer. That's usually a very
Mhm.
common goal. Then we say, okay, when do we get that started? You should say from yesterday. So you just
Right.
get set up. You don't have to wait for Monday. You don't have to wait for the beginning of the year. It's just at that moment when you're ready to make that change and that move, then that's where you make that appointment. And then I'm there for you to help you set up that plan and then go through the process and support you for you specifically, whatever that process is.
Okay, well, there's some esoteric thoughts there that I would like to clarify for somebody who's
Mhm.
brand new tonight who goes, how are you going to support me? Am I going to be able to call you 24/7? How can you imagine? Wait, let's not put that out there. What is it that you can offer? What can someone expect? Now, I don't mean from you, Dr. Effy, in your practice, but in
Yeah.
naturopathic medicine. Let's say someone is going to Western medicine and they really don't know what naturopathic or homeopathic or acupuncture or any of that is. What could they expect? How is that different? Do you wear a stethoscope? Do I sit down in the chair? Do you do lab work? What is that like? What does support look like?
Yeah, so ideally with naturopathic care, we'll start there because sometimes acupuncture, again, it's very similar approach, but the process with the first or second or third visit, I will say just to have kind of an idea of the process. Most naturopathic doctors, the way we kind of assess is we have first visit is really your brain dumping, you're opening up the floodgates, you're telling us everything and anything you want to tell us. There's no pressure to talk about things until you're comfortable in, say, more emotional scenarios or things that just really can be very deep and hard to even express. But our first visit really is all about getting to know you. I want to know everything that bothers you, everything you've done, things you've talked about, what Google told you, because for sure we've all Googled. Whatever you have found out, because a lot of patients, what I love and I see in our naturopathic community is that they're researching and they're coming and saying, this is what
Mhm.
I found. And I'm like, perfect. Let's delve more into that. This would be beneficial. This won't. This we can put in the back burner. So we have that really open conversation that first visit. And they can vary with naturopathic doctors between an hour to 90 minutes. So it
Okay.
really comes down to, and a lot of times it's not about the time. We put a time on there because we have to, right? We have to put it on the receipt. But for us, it's like, what time do we need to sit and chat and really get an idea of what's going on? And then from there, plans are made, whether it's blood work, whether it's getting blood work, maybe it's doing specialty testing, maybe it's just doing some intake like diet diaries and finding out what you're eating for the week or how your emotions are going through the week. So there's a little bit of a objective kind of assessment that we use as you do some of the work and as we do assessments or do check in. And then from there, we have a plan of action that's going to start. And I usually tell my patients, or at least a lot of naturopathic doctors I've seen too, is we have phases, right? Phases of treatment. This is first phase. This is what we're going to work on. Once we get through this, this is our goal here. Then we're going to move into this phase and that. So I always like to let patients know the expectations, how long they're on things, when I'm going to see them again. I would love to see them all the time, but it's not something we need, right? We want to give that space for the person to do the work, and then we're there to hold them accountable.
Okay, so it's a relationship that we're having. So imagine many years ago, this was not mainstream, right? How many years would you say naturopathic medicine is really in the eye of the public?
Ooh, that's a good historical question. That's kind of testing my knowledge right now. Um, I was like, how long have we been around for? Well, we know medicine like this was practiced very long ago, and it changed as, wars came out and the need for emergency medicine came about. And so there was a little shift over. But I would say in the last, ooh, I kind of feel like I need to Google this. I apologize.
No, 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 that's
Is
okay. We're
I would
all
say, we'll say the last 100 years.
okay. So we're having a
I'm gonna go with
conversation.
100 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. So in the last 100 years, and so we won't get into acupuncture yet. So Laurie, it's sort of like we started the Gratitude Girls over 13 years ago. And when we started interviewing our guests to share their stories 13 years later, we go about it a little differently. And the warming up of seeing a naturopathic doctor and the warming up of having a conversation, running a show, doing all the things that we do with our clients in our business, it's very similar in the sense that it's the relationship building. It's sitting together. If this were our first initial appointment, it would be telling us what we don't know, listening to the words you're sharing with the audience as we're sharing with your audience who will be watching us, the way that you hear what you hear from your patients and the way that you want them to understand who you are. So there's sort of a projection of an image, hence a camera. I feel like that's what happens in our business. Over the years, we have a different way of expressing it, and maybe we hone in a little bit. So maybe from 2008 to 2026, or 2012 to 2026, you've honed in a little bit differently on how you work with your patients, and maybe the environment is different. Perhaps you walk in the room with a different set of tools because maybe the tools have changed. And to your point, now we deal with online and global patients using a camera as opposed to what you might have learned in school is they're going to come and sit down in front of you, right? Times have changed. So in that changing of the times from what you learned to now, do you think it affects the effectiveness of naturopathic medicine, sometimes having a camera in between you and the patient?
Yes and no. I think part of healing is being present with that person. And I think with Bastyr University and Dr. Bastyr, one of the things that was a big, profound aspect was it was the concept of the touch or connection with your patients. And I think when the online world has made it more accessible, easier for people to access in terms of distance, in terms of scheduling. And so there is a win there. But what I find as well is that connection when we go to see the doctor, when we go in person, there is much more intention, much more motivation to be present. And it's kind of like you're shutting everything else out around you because you're sitting there with that person. So as much as I love online and I offer it, and I think it's still a great aspect of providing care, that in person just adds so much more. And so I always try to make that happen. And when it can't happen, then we do it through a camera, and it's the outcome is going to be similar. It just might be the sensation and the connection that might change slightly for an individual, that might not be as much as if it was in person.
Do you make house calls?
I used to. That's how I started my practice, is going from home to home, carrying my table to do acupuncture home to home. And it was funny because I'm a big crime movie person. At one point, I was like, is this safe? Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking, I'm like, you think of all those scary movies, but then I was like, but I met such amazing people,
Hmm.
and it was fantastic. I loved it, but at the same time, it was also hard for me to be able to see a lot of people, and so having a space for them to come at their own time was just, it made more sense.
Dr. Effy, is there a point that you can look back on your career and say, wow, this was really harder than I thought it would be? Because when I was in class, it seemed really easy.
So I remember I graduated from Bastyr in 2012, and I just kind of taught there for a bit. I didn't practice in Seattle. And so when I moved back to Toronto and I finished my acupuncture, you're just so used to like leaving the room and to go talk to a supervisor. And I thought it was so funny. I walked out of the room and I said, why did I walk out of the room? I don't have anyone to talk to. I'm the practitioner. So it was a moment of like, huh, there's no one to talk to. Do I know what I'm doing? Should I go back in? Should I just review some notes? It was like that moment of like, oh my goodness, this is all on me. So that part a little bit was kind of a little startling, scary, fun, exciting, all at the same time, to say, oh, wait, I am the professional. I'm here. I'm ready. I'm licensed. So that was a little different. Um, but I think the other biggest one is no one's textbook normal. There is no perfect number. Everyone's going to come in with complexity in their symptoms, and it's going to be like, okay, where do we start? And I think it's just kind of stepping back and looking at the information and putting it together. And it's just sometimes just getting out of my own head and saying, I know what I'm doing. But for
Mm.
the most part, it was just that startling first time where it's like, oh, everything we learned. So the numbers are not at all the same. So what do I do now? It was kind of that moment of, okay, this is life.
Thank you for explaining that. Now, Dr. Effie, with all that goes on during the course of a day, listening to patients, so as a practitioner, taking it on, being the one who has the responsibility and to be accountable, what do you do if you're getting close to your edge?
Do you mean like from like a burnout perspective?
What do you
Is
do?
that what
Yeah.
you
So
mean?
let's talk about pre-burnout. Let's say somebody has a practice, but they're not a naturopathic doctor and they have a practice and they're taking it all on, similar to you. I'm wondering if you can share a tip, like what do you do for you way before you get to that? Because you're taking a lot on, like a lot of founders are and private practitioners are in their business, or maybe they have multiple businesses and they're thinking, okay, great, I
Mhm.
wish I could get to Dr. Effie, but what do I do before how do they keep that? Is there no normal? How do they keep the balance using one of your five pillars?
Well, first and foremost, I think all of us as founders, as building businesses from scratch, as getting into school and coming out and starting even a practice that's maybe preset, is knowing your boundaries of burnout, right? We want to work, work, work. We want to work with everyone. Especially in healthcare, we are taking on a lot of the person's energies. There was a lot of times where I had to learn how to ground, because I was taking people's shoulder pain away, but then I had the shoulder pain. I was picking it up for them. So
Mhm.
learning to ground, finding that balance. I think I grew up as a millennial being like, oh, work and work and work and go to school and no time off and do this. Time off, when we use the word rest, we kind of think, oh, we're lazy, we're not going to do work, we're kind of slacking. Rest is so important. So I think the first step is really looking at a calendar or schedule and saying what is reasonable, what is feasible, because we also want to live life. We want to
Mhm.
sleep 8 hours. We want to have time to eat our food without eating it on the go. So those habits that we form and the way we kind of lay out our schedule and what we allow and say yes to, that's where we can make the first biggest changes and prevent burnout. And having burnt out at least two, three times over the last 15 years, it's not a fun place to be.
Right, thank you. So look at our schedules and how do you deal with getting to the edge? Try not to get to the edge. Accountability, I've heard you say the word accountability a few times, and I think that makes a lot of sense because if someone's not familiar with naturopathic medicine, or they've never heard of a naturopathic doctor, or they don't know one and they've heard of one, and they're thinking, I don't know if that's for me. So if someone comes to you and they're not really sure, what's some of the downfall of someone not listening to you? What happens?
Well, a lot of times, the downfall is that they're not going to see the outcomes they want. And we need to put in the energy, when I'm teaching as well, and when we're talking about acupuncture, where someone's coming in for a treatment for 1 hour or half an hour or 2 hours, whatever the amount of time is, what is happening in between? So if we're not ready to make that change, and that's sometimes a hard piece to really grapple with as an individual who's trying to make those changes, if we're not ready to make the change, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter how many doctors you see, how many naturopaths you see, how many supplements you take. We really need to hold ourselves accountable. And then ideally, my goal is to support the person and say, okay, what are the obstacles? What do we need to change? But if we're not doing the work, there's nothing I can do to make anything better. It's not my place also to pressure somebody and push somebody when they're not ready, but we need to be ready. And I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of people also think of naturopathic doctors and your alternative medicine is like, okay, I'm gonna have to stop eating all the good foods. I'm gonna have to go to bed early. I'm gonna have to take all these weird tasting supplements. Partial of that amount might be true, but we make it worse than it needs to be because we want to kind of distract ourselves and say, okay, we'll wait a bit. We'll wait a bit. And that waiting
Mm.
is what causes a lot of harm.
So if we're not willing to change some of our habits, we might in fact not be as successful. I have so many questions. Laura, did you have a question that you would like to ask, or may I proceed?
Sure, I'll ask one. But yeah, one thing that I thought of was I remember my mom telling me years ago, if you feel thirsty, you're already dehydrated. And so that's just I just when you were talking, that just reminded me that example of so many things that if you feel something, it's already been put in motion. So you needed to talk to that naturopath yesterday.
100%.
But
It's true.
yeah, exactly. But so in your work, I know I'm sure you have 100 different stories, but is there any time, any certain story that you want to share with the world of a gratitude story of maybe where something went bad or you thought was going to go bad and then turned into gratitude?
Ooh, I'm trying to think. For some reason, my brain needs examples right now. Can you give me an example so I can kind of try to pinpoint in my experience?
Yeah, it could be anything. So it could be like maybe something with, so you just went back to school. I mean, not just went back, but the last session you did to get an additional license, of course, to help yourself as well as help other people, right?
Mhm.
So through that, is is there something that you're extra grateful for of getting that extra knowledge?
Yeah. Ironically, when I was at Bastyr, I just did the naturopathic degree because that's what my intention was. And I started to see the acupuncture studies and I thought this would be really cool to learn. It wasn't even about like I was like, oh, this will be great to have in my toolbox. I was like, this seems so
Mhm.
intriguing to see its effect and how it works for people and how the outcomes were coming up. But I didn't end up doing it in Seattle because it was way too much schooling, way too much on the schedule. And I decided, I'm going to burn out, which prior to doing that, I was already burning out. But when I came back to Toronto, I didn't know the curriculum here included acupuncture. So I was actually
Mhm.
forced to do it, which was funny because I wanted to do it. So it worked out that I ended up getting a second license. And I also got the opportunity to continue teaching after graduation there, even though I told my dean I don't want to teach. But somehow she said, "You're going to be a great teacher." And I kind of was like, okay, let's try it. So that is a gratitude moment because it was kind of like I made a mistake. I didn't read the notes, but it worked out in the end for me. And it
Mm.
was, I just love adding that with my care with patients.
Yes, as you originally thought about it, it ended up being something that you organically included. Dr. Effy, there's always a part in our show where we like to hand the mic over to you. And when we do that, it's think about this. Okay, time's up. A question that you would like to ask Laurie and let us know who you're addressing first. And this way you can think about it. Ask us a question, unrehearsed, so our audience will know this is unrehearsed. We've been doing this for 13 years. You are the interviewer at this moment. So please go ahead and
Okay.
ask us a question and we'll be happy to answer. Let us know who goes first.
I will start with Lori. Because and again, I know this is a joint business with Gratitude Girls, but how do you see gratitude shaping the way you've built this business, how you mentor people or connect with people in your community? How do you find that gratitude has shaped that for you?
Yeah, I think I mean, I was really raised to be grateful. Like my grandmother taught me when I was 5, if somebody does something for you or gives you something, you have to write them a thank you card, right? Because they didn't have to do that. So I was lucky to be kind of raised that way. But when Kathryn and I got together, we won this award on stage in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And we didn't know each other before that moment, but we both knew, there's no coincidences. And we just like felt that energy of there's something. We didn't have any idea what it was going to be, but we literally bought the domain gratitudegirls.com and started our company instantly like that. Like I was on my phone and we did it that night. And then we're like, we'll figure out the rest later. And so, but I think going through all the all the shows we've done, all the connections we've done with great speakers like you, and then just all the other work that we do with coaching clients and speaking events and our gratitude girls book and our retreats and so many different things, it helps us to exactly that, like make sure that gratitude and that gratefulness is always at the front of your mindset, right? Because I mean, we've been doing this 13 years together, and we're together every single week. And even though we're in different countries most of the time, not always, but, it's like, but it's like we're best friends that live next door because we're constantly in each other's ears or texting or calling or videoing and and the gratitude is being brought in. And there's like so many times, like even I go out to restaurants and we tip well, but then I'll leave a book for the waitress and I'll talk to them about that and I'll tell them, make sure that you sign up in our groups, make sure that you fill this out, connect with us, and let us know after your 100-day challenge where you stand, and so I think it's just so good to make you and force you to have that gratitude and that gratefulness right front and center all the time.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that answer. I just kind of really just jived. I'm like, I agree 100% with you. I love that. Building on a similar question, but not the exact same, Kathryn. So you're going to have to think of your own answers, we'll say, which I know you're great at doing. Um, in terms of business as well, not only just the business you're in and the businesses you run, but the businesses you support. Do you think gratitude itself changes the way people lead that business, build that business, connect and grow that business within their community? And how have you seen that happen?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll start with when I moved into this province. I'm not from here, I'm from New York. I lived in Montreal for 26 years. I lived in many different cities within this in Ontario. I myself experienced something, and because I experienced it, I get to know how that looks for other people. So, short story is when I moved here, I wanted to brand myself. So, talk about a business being grateful. And I thought, well, I want to be able to let people know who I am and what I do. And at that time, I was changing careers. So, I hired a branding coach for which I paid $10,000 to be branded. And that branding coach came up with a brand name. And at the same time, our first grandson, his very first words were RaRa. And I stopped relating to everything except RaRa when I heard those words from him. So, as a new business and grateful in building a business, do I think that gratitude has something to do with how a business is built? How we start and why we start, it's our why, it's our story. As soon as he said RaRa, that was it. I bought the website. I did what Laurie and I had done before we had even met. And I knew that was right. And I was grateful to have spent that money with that coach to bring me to where I was. To this day, she still calls me Asaro networking because that's what she came up with. But I'm RaRa, and I don't answer to anything else because that is not a name or brand that I bought. It's who I am at my core. So as I decided to continue to build my business, this gratitude for this new life, for my family, for having put my money where my mouth is, for having going through the process and understanding that there was no failure. It was go to the end and find out what was there for me. As I built my business, I was grateful for every step of the way. When I watch businesses build with a less than, not good enough, I don't know, I'm brand new, I've never had a client in my life, I don't know what's going to happen mindset, when we put gratitude with that, fear goes away. If we add gratitude, it's like, I don't use salt, but if somebody says it needs something and you put salt and it tastes better, to some people, gratitude makes it better. It removes, erases, overpowers, no political pun intended. It trumps everything because gratitude umbrellas, oversees everything and puts it in its place. As soon as we feel less than, not good enough, or start worrying and bring negativity, I can tell you it will fall apart. When we're grateful, there is nothing that could tear it apart.
Beautifully said. Love it. Thank you for
Thank you
those
for that.
answers from both of you.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Laurie and I have been doing this for such a long time. And Laurie, to the point about us meeting on stage, for somebody who's watching for the first time tonight, Laurie and I did not know one another, but I did know of Laurie. I heard of her because Laurie was recognized for the woman who gave the most gifts in our company. And I remember thinking to myself, I would love to meet this woman. And I met her on stage. And what do you think she did 2 seconds after she met me? She gave me a gift. And Laurie, true to herself, lives in gratitude. And that vibe, there might have been moments that we weren't sure about things, but that gratitude, this is something that we both feel. Now, for somebody who's watching for the first time building a business, Laurie and I communicate every single day. We do not miss a day. Now, that's dedication, that's friendship, that's love, that's camaraderie, that's business. We don't punk out. We don't. We don't let each other. If I'm going to fly off the handle one day, Laurie's going to be there to catch me. Vice versa. There is no, I don't feel like this is a good day to talk, so therefore I'm going to recluse. Nope. Laurie, I don't know if you want to say anything about this, but this is how we build our business. We make a commitment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a part of exactly that word, the commitment. And, 13 years and living in different countries, most people, it's hard to, we coach people that run partnerships, that run companies that are having all kinds of issues. And we talk about those. And it is hard, but like she said, we don't leave room. And there's many times Kathryn's picked me up off the floor, so to speak, and said, "Girl, this is the way it's gonna be, and straighten up, straighten up your crown, right?" And but that's it. You have to be that for each other. Not only, you have to be not only the cheerleader to cheer each other on, but also the one that comes by and, steps on your toes and tells you what's what. And, as well as the love and friendship and, oh, that's wonderful, right? But it's got to be all those things in that picture because balance is everything, right? And that's so much with like the naturopathic that if you don't have that balance, then something is going to fail. And when that fails, then that's when you need to go see somebody to get help, right? Because your body talks to you, right?
And thank you for that, Laurie. The daily ritual, Dr. Effy, your 5 pillars, Laurie and I's commitment, our belief. There is no way we wiggle out of anything. And I have to say something about that. Even if it were snowing, we would both get on that plane to see each other. We do not let an excuse get in front of us, forget in the way, because that will change everything. And what foundation we have, the foundation we have for that is gratitude. Being grateful keeps you grateful. Not being in gratitude, the mindset of not caring enough about one's health, thinking I'll wait till tomorrow. I should have done it yesterday. I'll wait till after December. You have to be grateful for who you are. You don't have to be, but if you are grateful for who you are at the moment and you live each moment to its fullest, there is no waiting if then on the if come later. This is the moment we are our best. This is the moment we want to perform at our best, enjoy it, rest at our best, whatever that performance looks like, and enjoy ourselves and the moment that we're in so that when we reflect, we're not reflecting nervousness, insecurity, unhealthy vibes. We're reflecting this moment is the moment we're going to look back on and it's going to come back to us. So if we want to kibosh it, we're going to get that. If we want to make sure that we're riding the waves, then we take in a deep breath. And I love to do that. We just go in through the nose and out through the mouth. If you breathe for 10 seconds, just think about that. It will change where you're at. I tell Alexa every single day to remind me to breathe so that in case I forget, which I don't, Alexa is telling me when to meditate and when to breathe. So, Dr. Effy, you've been here hanging out with us, talking with us with this experience of being on your first podcast. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'd like to, as friends, tell us a little bit about how does it feel to talk to the camera and to have 2 hosts speak to you about your practice and how you make a difference in the world?
It's been, at first I was like, oh my goodness, are they going to ask me crazy questions? What am I going to talk about? Am I going to look good? Am I going to be staring at the right camera? But overall, it's just one, again, your energies both are so inviting and calming, and even the tone of voice and everything. And I know your community is going to be very similar. And it was a really great experience just to chat without needing to worry about anything, right? Um, so I really enjoyed it, and I think it is the atmosphere that really made it really calm and invigorating at the same time.
Well, we appreciate that. And listening to how you bring a patient into your zone of genius where they relax and you read them and you feel them and you get to know them makes me want to be able to tell everybody that I know, which we will do with our social media, to have a chat. If you're watching for the first time, have a talk with Dr. Effy. Find out, we're going to list all the ways where you can reach her. But Dr. Effy, do you have one particular thing that you'd like our audience to know about you, how they can reach you or when they can speak with you?
I always leave it to the avenues that people are most comfortable with. I'm pretty much everywhere, which is kind of scary at the same time
Yeah.
sometimes, because I'm just like, oh, there's this social media and that one. So they have all my connections there. So whatever they're most comfortable, whether it's sending a DM, whether it's, you know, sending me an email, or connecting with me directly, whatever is the best way for them, I'm totally open to because I'm giving them those offerings to connect with me those way.
Well, thank you. Laurie, I attended a really cool wellness workshop meeting this week. Dr. Effie launched something. She's very humble. And we had a chance to talk about things that we didn't expect to talk about. So, can you share with us a little bit about that meeting before Laurie and I wrap up?
Yeah. So we did a nice ear seeding event, which was quite exciting because that's the side of treating the ear for the whole body. But it was interesting because this is a conversation I've had with myself many times and colleagues, when we're learning about what brought us to do what we're doing, like naturopathic medicine and acupuncture. And I know, um, Kathryn, you really described like the process I went through. And one of the attendees had asked, well, what made you do this? What got you into this? What made you decide to make that decision? And I'm always like, well, I grew up healthy. I don't know. Like I wasn't really sick. And then I just sat there and I said, well, you know, I saw firsthand just seeing someone who I thought was super strong and super healthy because they were my dad. I'm like, oh, they're running a business, they're traveling, they're a part of the community, they're doing all these amazing things. And then suddenly passing at the age of 49 without any reason behind it. And just saying, oh my goodness, there is much more to just medicine than just emergency care or the way I was looking at medicine to go into because I thought doctors were so cool and they had new answers and all this, and so it really changed my view of what type of medicine I wanted to practice. Initially, I wanted to do pediatrics, which I think was quite funny that I didn't end up there. But just seeing this person who I thought was like healthy and robust and, you know, all these things and just realizing, hey, there were so many signs now as an adult seeing that we're missed, that we're not acknowledged and we're not thought of, or again, we're okay. I'm a male. I'm gonna do fine. I'm healthy. I don't need to see the doctor. And so that really brought me into that kind of concept of saying prevention is what we want and we want to feel best. So when we're 90 or when we're 80 or when we're even in the next 10 years we're healthier, right? And I think that's where it changed my view, and it wasn't so much what happened in my life but what I saw from others in my life that drew me that way.
Thank you. We did an ear seating event. We hosted it. I sponsored it at Verity, and we had a really good time. And Dr. Effie will chat with you if you want to know more about that. We're going to have a gouache stone event, and we're going to learn how to do these beautiful things to our face. And then Dr. Effie launched, there's my New York accent, launched
Okay.
her online wellness meeting and share that with us because it's brand new and I was an attendee there. So just let our audience know that they can actually get to the doctor every single month online. This is awesome.
Yeah, so I found that, I love doing events. It's always hard to get people in person because we're just busy bees and always on the go. Um, but I took advantage of this whole online connection. I said, well, this can be a community space similar to what you ladies have created with Gratitude Girls, having this community space where there's connection and community. And I wanted to do the same where it's not so much about one-on-one individualized care. It's more laid back, more about learning and trying to ask questions and where resources might be or who they can seek out. Because it might not be it might not be me who's the good fit for them. They might be localized somewhere different. And so this online membership is just a nice way for us to connect once a month online, short period of time, but more than enough time for us to chat five pillar health, your own kind of questions about health, all the fads that we're seeing on social media, all the questions we might have to say, is this the right thing for me? Or what should I be thinking about? Or I'm going to my doctor and I don't know what to ask about. I don't know how to express what I'm experiencing. Simple as that. Just kind of
Mhm.
easy talk discussion on health without all the extra involvement if you're not ready for that.
I love that I was able to be there, and this beautiful event has a wonderful name that I'm going to tell you in a moment because I was there. Dr. Effy, what is it called?
The
Wellness.
Ask Dr. Effie Wellness and Ask Dr. Effie ND Wellness membership.
Okay, ask Dr. Effy ND Wellness members. If you want to ask the doctor a question, Dr. Effy has a way for you to do that. So hang out with us, Dr. Effy. Laurie and I are going to wrap up the show in a few minutes. We're so glad. We're so happy. We're glad that you're here with us. I had a great time. I know, Laurie, I know you had a good time. Our audience is going to be able to rewatch this show over and over again. So, Laurie, we have so many wonderful things going on. Maybe we can wrap up with our audience and let them know if they saw Dr. Effy tonight and said, I want to be her. I want to be that doctor in that seat on the Gratitude Girls show. Can you share a little bit about how somebody can be here, what they have to do, and besides putting in an application, what some of those steps are? You in the mood for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the easiest thing is just go to gratitudegirls.com/guest and you can see all the information there. Of course, it is first get your Gratitude Girls journal. And that link is on our site also for Canadians as well as the US, since we are in both countries, but anywhere in the world can get it, of course. And go there and you can and excuse me, you can see all the information of becoming a guest and being like Dr. Effie and getting on our schedule. And then also you can watch all of our past shows. So we have 13 years of shows at gratitudegirls.com. So go through there. There's lots of free coaching and all the different shows, and you can see how different people talk on the shows and the different interviews that we have and what it would take for you to be on the next show.
Thank you so much for saying that. If you're looking to host an event and you would like us to come to your country, your office, your Zoom lens, and you would like us to talk to your company about gratitude, send us a message. We'll be happy to share with you what our schedule looks like and how we approach that. Laurie, I love everything about what we do. We've been here almost an hour. That's a long time. So this is, if you want to binge watch Gratitude Girls, start with this show. All right, Laurie, I love that we're here. Dr. Effy, thank you so much. I like to use my Mac emojis. Oh, there we go. Those hearts are to you. So thank you so much. And because we really can make you the rock star that you are, I'm not too sure if I can get balloons out of this and confetti. Thank you for being here, Dr. Effy. We'll see you soon. Laurie, love you. And thank you to our audience. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye. Thank you.